Okay, so my first step is to open the HTML document. Actually, before I even do that, I need to address the fact that it's not named properly. Notice that the name, I'm just going to quickly get the information so it's a little easier to see. The name of the HTML document is actually part, space, and then what would be a Roman numeral 1. This is actually a no-no. We don't want to have any spaces in our titles for HTML or CSS documents. So I'm going to correct that right now. I simply just added an underscore and then click enter to confirm. And there's my newly or freshly renamed HTML document. Next thing is to open it up, and I'm going to use Dreamweaver just because it provides such a great tool and makes things much quicker. And I'm going to confirm. Alright. So the other thing I noticed is that in looking at this document, the link is pointing to a different CSS file, and I have a feeling that is probably part of one of the reasons why we're having trouble with this rendering correctly in Blackboard Learn. Just to go back to my native files or the files that you sent me, if you notice olmp elcss file.css, the name that in the document you sent me was sos underscore BLI CSS file. So I know that's going to be partly a problem. The other thing is too, I'm going to be able to actually work with this and make a correction, I'm going to sort of do a disappearing act and remove just temporarily the link. Okay, so I haven't deleted or anything, and I'm going to now reassociate the new CSS file. And to do that, I'm just going to double click on my action tab down here at the bottom. There's a link, it looks like a chain for attached style sheet. Browse to it, and since I've already got a Ken files folder, I know where to go. OK to confirm. And this achieves two things. For one, now when I click on this, I have the newly attached style sheet, so I can go in and make changes as needed. But the other thing is when I actually go in to reload this document, I know for a fact that I've got a working link, and I can make some adjustments here if needs be. Alright, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of what's actually in the document itself. One thing to point out though, and I learned this directly from Blackboard, is using these URLs is actually now the incorrect way to do it, and what we should actually be using is what are called the permanent URLs and what those look like. So the proper way to insert anything that's going to be based in the Blackboard Content Manager is to use what's called the what Blackboard has deemed the permanent URL, and so that's going to be this guy here. In earlier versions of Blackboard Learn, this XID created a lot of problems on especially on firewalls and such. They've since worked that bug out, so now using these permanent URLs actually does work. The other thing, and the other reason why it's important to use these permanent URLs, is that when we copy courses, the permanent URL tells the browser to go back to this specific file. So in this case, even if we've copied this course 15 times, it will always go back to the same content directory. So that's good news. I'm not going to go in and track down where this particular image is, but when the time is right, you can go in and make that adjustment if you so choose. Okay, so next thing is I'm going to look through, see if there's anything that seems to be sticking out, and there is. Right away I've got this block quote and what's a deprecated code for italics. The thing is, in some cases, these what's happened here is this block quote has a nested italics in it, and that works okay, but sometimes there's a bug, and especially with Internet Explorer, sometimes the browser, older versions of Internet Explorer specifically, won't render when we have this kind of nested HTML code. So one option, just to be safe and for sure that we're not going to have any problems, is to simply create a new div asset. I'm going to make up a name, which I'll then place in the style sheet. I'm just going to call it italics quote, and it looks like I've already created that particular name in the style sheet, so I'm a little bit ahead of the game. And I have to end my dev, and what I'm going to do is remove this refresh and see what happens. And so we have the italics. This is being controlled by the style sheet at this point now. The block quote has remained, and we can confirm that by clicking Live View in Dreamweaver. I don't need to enter this for the moment, but you can see where the block quote is working as it should. Turn off Live View. Alright, we scroll down. I do see another problem here. It isn't a problem, it works, it's just there's a better way to do it. The effect is essentially creating a header, or what's been used as a paragraph and a strong, and I can simply use the tag H3, which stands for header font size 3, and I can go scroll down a little bit, and as I refresh I get the exact same function as I did by using a paragraph and the bold tag. The other thing is, or rather in this case you'd use a strong tag. Strong's okay, it's just it's old, it's considered deprecated code, so it's better to stay current and use just simply the B tag. B is short for bold. It looks like we now have our item that we want to get centered. So one thing I would like to point out is I believe there's two things that are kind of problematic. It's really not a good idea to use an HTML tag, in this case center, and then also use a class name. In this case the class name that's been assigned is center. I would recommend using something more like more unique, like centered quote, and that's just for clarification. It's, you know, what's been set up here works. You know, it's just one of those little technicalities. It's like syntax in writing, right? You know, you want to use a period and not a semicolon whenever possible. So alright, anyway, just a recommendation. Now for the problem at hand. In this case there isn't really much I need to do with this particular section. However, I do need to take a look at the CSS file, and it's right here at the bottom, which is nice and neat, and we almost have it correct. Margin left and margin right set to auto is exactly correct. The one thing that's missing is we have to tell a browser to assign a specific width. Without having the width, the margin left and margin right auto will not do what it's supposed to do. So that's actually where the problem was. So what I've done now is created a width at 800 pixels, and watch this. Immediately upon refresh, boom, my element centers as we wanted it to. And to confirm that, I'm just simply going to open up Google, and booyah, there we go. Now I opted to use the width of 800 pixels, although this is, I just know from experience that's a really good number to use, because it refers to the width of most browser pages. But I could have just as easily said 1800, or I could have said, you know, 9800. 800 is pretty good. 700 would have worked fine as well. But the one rule of thumb here is you never want to set your width on something like this to anything that's smaller than the element itself. So I'm looking at my table class. The width has been set to 70%. That's going to adjust. 70% will adjust automatically to the amount of space allocated to it, right? So what that means is I just, using CSS, told it the maximum width is going to be 800 pixels, and now our table will be 70% of that 800 pixels. Make sense? We could go 100%, and now we're going to have a table that will be 800 pixels wide. See how it adjusts automatically? So in fact, that might even be a better way to go if I go in and preview and I get the same effect. Go back to Dreamweaver to take a look and see if there's anything else that we need to adjust. Okay, and we have another one of these shortcuts we can use here by simply adding in the H3 tag. And I'll click Save to confirm. So now it's time to go in and adjust our CSS file. And so since I've made some changes to the CSS file itself, I need to save them one more time to be safe, and then load them into the content repository. More in just a second. So with our CSS file and our HTML document saved, it's now time to load them into Blackboard. To begin, what I will do is minimize my screen here, and I've saved time by just opening up the CSS directory. And I'm going to leverage Blackboard's GUI to upload this upload the CSS by simply clicking Upload Files. I need to navigate over to where my file is, and it's saved in my Ken Files folder. Click Open, Submit to confirm, and there it is. Slick as grease lightning. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we want to start using permanent URLs. Previously we were using the web folder URLs, but again, Blackboard has fixed a bug that was previously creating problems for us, and we are now going to use permanent URLs. So I drag and copy back over to Drumweaver I go, scroll up, and in this case I'm going to drag and paste. Okay, I'm in business, and I'll just delete this out of here now. Save one more time, and now it's time to do the magic. So I do a Control A, Control C to copy, head over into Blackboard, and I'll go to the Start Here section, and I'm going to create a new content item just for the sake of demonstration. This is a demonstration, and alright, flip over into HTML, delete this extraneous code, and do a Control V to paste. Formatting stuck so far. Submit to save. Blackboard now tells me that this is a demonstration was created. I scroll down to the bottom because that's where Blackboard always puts it. And here is my new content item. We've got a centered table. We've got our headers. And this is a very good thing. Hope this helps. If not, give me a buzz or shoot me an email.